Closer to home, we saw the China naval incident. It was in international waters in the exclusive economic zone of Japan. The Prime Minister, when I spoke to him yesterday, was saying he's not going to divulge personal or private conversations with another world leader. These were on the sidelines of the APEC Summit, but he said that they were left in no doubt, the Chinese authorities, as to Australia's view. Is it better to be more cautious when it comes to diplomacy?
This isn't about diplomacy, Kieran. This is a serious incident that occurred to our Navy sailors in international waters in Japan's economic zone, as you stated. It happened on a Tuesday. The Prime Minister was with the President of China on Friday. He had 3 days in which to be absolutely assured of what had happened, no mistakes, no confusion, and then to raise it. The suggestion that it has been communicated somewhere by somebody, it's the safety of our Navy men and women we're talking about here, conducting what might have been quite treacherous activity. You know, I'm a diver myself. The notion of being under the water, trying to get fishing nets off a propeller, who knows at what depth, and all of a sudden they get a kind of sonic boom from a nearby People's Liberation Army vessel, which had been clearly indicated in advance. So to not have raised it at the highest levels when he could have is a disgrace. I think he needs to be clearer with the Australian people. He might have.
As to whether he did.
Then there's a way of telling us without telling us. You don't need to say, well, first I said this and then he said that and then we said that. We've heard our leaders discuss high-level conversations before without divulging the nitty-gritty of the conversation. And I think the hedging and weaving suggests that it wasn't raised at all.
Yeah, well, I should mention that my colleague Andrew Clennell has reported the last 24 hours that his understanding is it was raised with Chinese leadership during the APEC Summit on the sidelines of the summit. The PM wasn't going there, as I said yesterday, but you think there is a form of words which would make it clear that he did without breaching confidence? Is that the argument?
I think we've managed to convey the details of conversations at that level before without breaching the confidence of the actual specific words used. I think if the Prime Minister had raised it, he would have found a way to let us know by now. The fact that he hasn't let us know by now suggests that he didn't raise it, even though he'd had 3 or 4 days in which to do so.
The government appears open on another front. We've got Parliament returning next week, and the government does appear open to the idea put forward by your colleague James Patterson that the terrorist offender framework, things like preventative orders, continuing detention orders, might be the way forward for dealing with the cohort of people released in the wake of the High Court ruling on indefinite detention. As I say, it looks like the government might be open to pursuing that. Would you expect them to do so early next week when Parliament returns?
I think they have to be open to it. We have not yet seen the decision, the reasons for the decision handed down by the High Court. So what we do know is when those decisions come down, they may well give us an indication as to the scheme that would be the most robust scheme to be put in place when we know the full reasons for the decision. So they've had since June to be prepared for every eventuality. They didn't do it. We got something to make sure people were going to be safe, as the 93 have been released to date, but another 247 are expected to be released in coming days or weeks or months. We don't know yet. So obviously we will need to look at the decision when it comes, but if we think that there's a problem in relation to future releases and that what we've done last week does not go far enough, then of course we need to look at every option. And so I'm glad my colleague Senator Patterson has been raising other mechanisms that exist at present to keep Australians safe. They need to look at every option.
Is it something that's been raised with you by constituents, this issue?
To some extent. To be fair, my constituents are really focused on cost of living issues. We're going into the busiest season down on the Mornington Peninsula, and so it's about how do they afford their gas and electricity bills. I was with the chicken processing plant yesterday, and they're talking about how hard it is for our growers to meet electricity raises of 28%. Electricity is 18 and gas is 28. It's having an enormous impact on businesses down in my part of the world. So to be fair, people are more focused on that than they are on hardcore criminals being released into the electorate. And to be fair, they might be offenders anyway. I think as we've seen, they've been going to our major capital cities.
still the number one issue, cost of living, and particularly off the back of that most recent rate rise. Zoe McKenzie, thanks for your time. We'll talk to you soon. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kieran.